scripture begins with the word flesh, so I should probably explain what the letter is about. Jesus has just told the disciples that when they ask if he's about to bring in the kingdom, he's told them it's not for them to know what the times are. Then we begin our scripture. But you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you, and you'll be my witnesses in Jerusalem, and in Judea, and Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. After he had said this, he was taken up before their very eyes, and the cloud hid him from their sight. They were looking intently up into the sky as he was going, when suddenly 2 men dressed in white stood beside him. Men of Galilee, they said, why do you stand here looking into the sky? The same Jesus who has been taken from you into heaven will come again in the same way you've seen him go.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Jamie. I don't know about you, but I'm glad we have a nerd here and there. I think our world would be duller without them. And we wouldn't have nearly the technology and advancement without them that we've got today. Good morning. Good morning. Go ahead and turn your Bibles to Acts chapter 8. Acts chapter 8. I would, let me add something to something Rob said. Rob, thank everybody for all the help, and a lot of people really worked really hard to make yesterday a success.
He did not mention the fact that he and Molly spent a ton of time and a jillion hours putting this thing together, and they always do a good job, whatever they do, but they just did such an excellent job. And you just need to know that. He provides excellent leadership on that task. I would remind you again, don't forget the Christmas Eve service that we've planned. Everybody keeps asking me what time. It'll be 7 o'clock. The scriptural time, right? 7 o'clock. And then don't forget the Fifth Sunday celebration, which we are hosting as a congregation on the 30th of December. A Sunday afternoon, it'll be from 3 to 5, and it will be kind of a gathering of people from congregations all over the northwestern suburbs. And it will be a good event, and you will want to be a part of it. Just encourage you to do that. Why don't you stand up and say hi to somebody near you? Life is full of serendipities. I was visiting with Mark O'Farrell this morning. Mark and Patty have been visiting with us for some time, and I just found out that he attended a congregation that I preached at in Texas for a part of the time I was there. And I had not recognized him. I thought he kind of looked familiar, and he didn't recognize me at all, even though I was the preacher. I'll explain that one. But you got to understand, I was 30 years younger then, so I have changed a little bit in the way I look over the years, probably more than most, much to my chagrin. It was unquestionably one of the most valuable summers of my growing years, and I call them growing years even though I was in college. I didn't enjoy every minute. In fact, there were lots of minutes I didn't enjoy, but so help me, as looking back on it, I realized that every day, every minute was valuable to me and beneficial. The very thing that I enjoyed least was knocking on that first door in the morning at 8 o'clock in the morning. But I was told that that's when I had to do it, and so I did it. I've always been a rule follower, and I was very tenacious about that, just disciplined. 8 o'clock in the morning, my knuckles were on that door. On Saturday morning, however, my knock was not quite the same as it was most times. I was taught to knock very aggressively on the door, and that supposedly communicates urgency, importance. And so I did. I would knock very aggressively, but not on Saturday morning. On Saturday morning, I would knock ever so slightly, because I didn't want to wake up somebody. I was scared to death of waking someone who had been working hard all week, and I didn't want to disturb their sleep. But I still knocked at 8 o'clock in the morning, just very lightly, and hoped with everything in me that I wasn't waking someone up. On one particular morning, however, I was relieved that no one stirred. I didn't wake anyone up, and I was on my way back to the car to go on to the next house to do my duty there, to knock on that door too. very lightly. But when I got to my car, it wouldn't start. It was dead. Well, I didn't know what to do. I mean, I attempted to clean the battery cables, and that didn't help any. But I was out in the boonies. I mean, literally, I wasn't in town where you had modern conveniences like AAA. I didn't have a cell phone. There were no cell phones back then. And so, all I could figure out, the only thing to do, I did. And so, with every nerve of sensitivity in my body aching in resistance, I tried to locate the window of the house where the adults would probably be sleeping. And I went up and knocked on the window, kind of firmly, to wake them up. And I woke them up and apologetically explained my situation. And fortunately, they were gracious. I had wakened them, but the guy threw out his pickup keys out the window, and I took his pickup. I located his pickup, pulled it over, jumped my car, and got it started, and threw the keys back in the window, and went on my way, hoping that no one would ever find out about this humiliating experience. Well, I'm not sure, but I think I've come very close to describing both attitudinally and emotionally the way some of us have responded to evangelism, especially when we're approached with doing personal evangelism. Everything within us recoils against it. And if perchance someone impresses upon us the urgency that we need to do it, then momentarily we will become a little bit more aggressive, and we will make a difference for a while. But we can become so scared of interrupting their privacy or their lives, intruding unwanted where we need to be. We're so scared of that everything within us kind of recoils against us. And so we knock so lightly on the doors of their heart that they don't even realize we're knocking at all. Now, I'm not going to insult your intelligence by telling you it's not supposed to be that way. It's not supposed to be that way. Furthermore, it probably bothers you. Nevertheless, that's the way it is. But it's a stark contrast to the attitude and the emotion that we find in Acts chapter 8. And that's what I want to call your attention to. And we'll talk about it a little bit. In Acts 8, let me give you the setting for it. Stephen has just been stoned to death. He was the first martyr of the faith. There was a young man there by the name of Saul who contributed to that. He consented to Stephen's death. We later discover this fella, his name's changed to Paul, and we know him as Paul the Apostle. But this is before that. And Saul was there giving approval to his death. On that day, a great persecution broke out against the church at Jerusalem, and all except the apostles were scattered throughout Judea and Samaria. Godly men buried Stephen and mourned deeply for him, but Saul began to destroy the church. Going from house to house, he dragged off men and women and put them in prison. Those who had been scattered preached the word wherever they went. Philip went down to the city of Samaria and proclaimed the Christ there. When the crowds heard Philip and saw the miraculous signs he did, they all paid close attention to what he said. With shrieks, evil spirits came out of many. Many paralytics and cripples were healed. So there was great joy in the city. Now, what I want to call your attention to is that good news is the most natural thing in the world to share. It is. When an anticipated engagement is confirmed, it's heard all throughout the church before the lips are dry on the one who popped the question. And when a baby is born, most of the church know all the details, all the vital statistics about that kid before the dad knows whether it's a boy or girl. And smartphones and Facebook have really accelerated that and accelerated how much we know. But that's the kind of excitement that characterizes the spread of the good news about Jesus in this text. But not just in this text. What happened here was not at all unique. It was instead the norm. You see, good news just very naturally is the most natural thing to spread and share. When the first introduction we have of Jesus, we find an angel bursting into the privacy of shepherds out in their fields as they were watching their flocks. And you remember what he said? He said, I bring you good news of great joy. And what did he say? For all the people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, who's Christ the Lord. Now, he wasn't invited into that shepherding gathering, but he intruded into that shepherding gathering because he could not contain himself. It was that kind of natural sharing. Andrew, when he learned about Jesus, we're told that he ran to his brother Simon. We have found the Messiah, he said. And Philip did much the same with Nathanael, his brother. We have found the one Moses wrote about in the law and about whom the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. Now, Nathanael wasn't all that caught up with what Philip was telling him. And he says, Nazareth? Can any good thing come from there? And what does Philip say? Well, come and see. As Jesus ministered during his 3 years here on earth, we find over and over again, we're told that people ran ahead of him. People ran ahead of him to tell the people that the prophet was coming, the one who had been teaching, the one they had heard about, he was coming about and coming to their town. And so word preceded him even before he got there, and people waited with expectation for this good news that was coming. When Mary learned that he had risen from the dead, she ran to tell others. The two men on the road to Emmaus did very much the same thing. And just a couple chapters after our text passage, we find that the Gentile, when he heard that a man was coming to talk to them about this Jesus that he had heard about, he gathered all of his friends and neighbors around in the house so that when Peter arrived at Cornelius' house, it was full. Why? Because good news is the most natural thing in the world to share. And so in this text, when people left Jerusalem, even though they were leaving under persecution for fear of their lives, I mean, that's why they left Jerusalem. They were in fear for their lives. Nevertheless, wherever they went, they spread the good news about Jesus because it was that kind of thing. It was good news and it had to be shared. Now, hold that image. And consider this, our generation, my generation has perverted evangelism from what it was supposed to be into a high-pressured marketing scam. My generation did that. Rather than excited sharing, it was turned into a complex, systematic theological presentation involving charts and methods, anticipated objections with canned responses to those objections, proof texts that carefully arranged with precision and interlinking so that it would lead people to where you wanted them to go, and closing. Don't forget the closing, the strategies for closing the sale. And I will tell you, folks, it was not supposed to be that way. And we wonder why we recoil from the activity that all of us say is the most important work of the church. Why do we recoil from it? Well, we recoil because deep down in our soul we know there's something wrong with this program. And so our alarms go off in our subconscious. That's what the program is. Good news is the most natural thing in the world to share, but my generation, and I have to accept some responsibility for that, My generation turned it into something else. The second thing I want you to see from this text is that where there is good news to share or to be told, there are angels to be found. Consider this. When Abraham learned that he was to become a daddy, at 100 years old he was to become a daddy, there was an angel there accompanying the good news. There was an angel there. An angel brought the news about John the Baptist's birth and also about Jesus' birth. The best good news the world up to that point had ever experienced. And guess what? It was an angel who brought the news. Angel stood at the tomb, heralding the resurrection. An angel met with the people on the mountain that he ascended from to tell them that he would come back just as he went, that there would be a return. There was an angel there. An angel accompanied Peter out of the locked jail and sent him to freedom. Another angel stood by Paul in the midst of his confinement and comforted him there. Angel simply means a messenger. It's a messenger. It's a messenger who's carrying the good tidings of God. When Trish and I moved to Maine, my first work out of graduate school, we were told upon arriving in Maine that there was a resident angel there. And that's the term that was used, angel. She is an angel. You just need to rely on her. And her name was Evelyn. Delightful lady. She was a school teacher who was nearing retirement. But so help me, she was, for that church, an angel. There are literally thousands of individuals about a generation old in Calcutta who would swear to you that they were touched by an angel by the name of Teresa. And you know, of course, that there's some resident angels here. Right here. Some of the names come to our thoughts immediately without any jarring at all. We recognize them. And the longer we ponder, the more individuals we think of, both men and women who are angels, who very much are angels, and for all different kinds of reasons. For some, it's their godly lives. They're ever present before us. We see them. We recognize the quality of their lives. And they influence us. They role model what it means to walk the walk of faith. Others, it's for their words of encouragement, or they're for their genuine wisdom. And we count on it. We depend on it. For still others, it's because of something they did specifically at a very important time to us that made a difference in our life. And for some, it's just kindness that seems to be a part of their DNA that reminds us how we are supposed to be and reminds us how Jesus was as he walked the earth and ministered to people. You see, God has his scattered angels, and he has always had his scattered angels among his people. And sometimes those angels are from another world, but sometimes they're from this world. You and I know that there's some good news to share. And we can be that kind of messenger too by joyfully sharing the joy of being a Christian. Not in some kind of concocted mechanical presentation that is a memorized sales speech, but by honestly just sharing your faith with people as you encounter them naturally. Or by saying simply, as Philip said to Nathanael, come and see. Just come and see. Then you'll understand. Or by words of knowledge or words of kindness that come not because people deserve them, but rather because they need them. Words of encouragement when they're discouraged. Words of affirmation when they've been successful. Words of promise when they need promise. Words of forgiveness and love. Not because they've earned it, but because they desperately need it. You too can become an angel because you're communicating either by your words or by your life the message of Jesus Christ. And it can be communicated either way. So was true of the angels of God. My challenge to you today is to remember that this message we've been given is not supposed to be a carefully crafted mechanical sales presentation where we got all of our scriptures kind of all lined up and we kind of present it in such a way that we kind of bend people's will to accept it. It was never intended to be that way. That is a perversion of the very gospel of Jesus Christ. But rather, the gospel of Jesus Christ has to do with what He came and did for us and what it means for our lives. And it means freedom. It means community. It means family. It means forgiveness. And we need to allow that to so saturate us with joy so that there's nothing we can do but share it.